Hello, and welcome to Tom's Rage Page. I don't know quite where to start with this. I just want to put something out there from an average guy's perspective. I don't have a college education. I work 2 jobs to support my family. I was never really into politics until the last 10 years or so. I'm 56 years old. And I think what started getting me there was the Kennedy assassination and all the questions that surrounded that. And that kind of led into other areas to where I am today. And I just find myself trying to get more educated, trying to look at it from a common sense perspective and not get caught up in all of the kind of BS that goes along with it. If you notice, I mean, it's just so obvious to me when politicians are talking and when news media people are talking. There's so much garbage mixed in that they never get to the heart of the matter. They never get to the main points. And it's always overlooked. And it's so simple. For instance, you never hear them talk about a 10% tax anymore when everybody, at least I haven't heard it. Now, I haven't heard all the debates. I haven't listened to all of the candidates that are in the presidential election this year, but I don't believe 10% tax is an issue that's come up. Now, I'm a huge believer in 10% tax, and the reason is that, pure and simple, if everyone paid the same percentage of tax that I do, we'd be out of debt tomorrow. It's just a fact. I mean, it's no secret that the corporations, the very rich in this country, the very well-to-do, have tax shelters, tax investments, overseas bank accounts. So that's money that's a huge percentage of the money in America goes without being taxed. And if every dollar earned were taxed 10%, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we'd be in better shape. And a lot of people say, well, if you tax the corporations heavy, then that kills the incentive to expand and reproduce. Come on. I mean, how much money does Exxon need? They made $40 billion in 2007, and I'm going to get back to Exxon, by the way. They made $40 billion profit in 2007 and $45 billion in 2008, the 2 largest profit margins of companies in U.S. history during a very down economical time. So that tells you a little bit about Exxon. And people were grateful the second year that gasoline went from above $4 a gallon down to what was a couple dollars, $1.80, $1.90. But what they don't know is that a barrel of oil was cut by 2/3. So that's why Exxon was still able to make a profit of $5 billion over the previous year. But I'm getting off track here. But I believe in 10% tax. You don't hear any candidates talking about it because, frankly, any candidate that brings it up won't get elected running on that platform at 10%. Because, and I'll get to another thing, point I was going to make, is that corporations in America own our government. Our government doesn't run this country, corporations do. They own the politicians, they own the courts, they make the laws. The large amount of people in government, senators, congressmen, go to work for these huge corporations at 10 times their salaries. It's no secret. So you tell me where their interests lie. So anybody, like I say, Perot was the last one I believe that ran on a 10%, offered a 10%, suggested a 10% tax across the board. So that's where I feel about that. Now, in order to have a better future, we really need to really know things that you won't hear, our kids won't hear in history class, that the media won't tell us, that you don't hear in everyday conversation about the structure of government, the history of America, of what we've done. I love America. I don't like who runs America. I'm not a radical. They would have you think that people that think my way are, that we're anti-American. It's not that at all. I mean, we're fortunate to have the most beautiful country in the world. We have more resources than any country in the world, but we've run amok, and we're in deep trouble if the structure of America isn't changed, if the basic laws aren't changed to keep corporations from running the country. And that may be next to impossible, considering that they basically own the country now, and everything between them and us. It's like George Carlin said. He said, it's a club, and you and I aren't in it, and they want more of what we've got. They want more money. So some of the things that you may not be aware of that happen in America, if you talk about corporate America. I don't know how many of you are familiar with a general by the name, and said that some wealthy Americans came to him with a proposal to overthrow FDR and the government of the United States. And they basically balked, laughed at him, but after an investigation, a 2-month investigation, let's see if I have the name of the committee here. One second. They were called the Special Committee on Un-American Activities Congressional Committee. Did a 2-month investigation and found that the allegations were credible, even though no one was prosecuted. And the New York Times kind of reversed its initial summation of it as a gigantic hoax, and said there may be some truth to it. So now, this was a general of the United States that brought this to light, and he said individuals from DuPont, U.S. Steel, GM, Chase Manhattan, Standard Oil, Goodyear, and others were funding this group that they were was going to be formed after the overthrow, supposedly, and they offered General Butler the position at the top of that group. So these are allegations again, but read up on your history and you'll see what I mean. You'd be very hard pressed to deny that something was going on. Another thing that happened in the United States, there was a car called the Tucker, which a gentleman designed and built and wanted to put in production. And this car had a lot of advanced features to it. I don't know right now. It may have had seat belts. I know it had headlights that turned as the car turned, but it was very advanced, very safe, very heavy. I think it had steel beams in the doors that provided more safety for the passengers. But General Motors, Ford, and GM, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler got together. Now this is again alleged, but there's a lot of evidence. Got together with the help of a senator, who I won't mention, and brought forth some fraudulent charges against them. It went to court and it was thrown out because they were found, the charges were found to be false. And by that time, the window had gone by and the car never went into production. But it's another thing you might want to read up on. The Tucker 1948 car It shows you how the big corporations didn't want to spend any more money. Would have had, if the car had been successful, they would have had to raise their level of safety in the car, advance the car to the level of the Tucker, which would have cost them millions of dollars. So they just basically put him out of business. Alleged, but read up on it, you'll see what I mean. One of my favorite companies I like to refer to is Exxon. Every time I say the name, I kind of bite my lip. It makes me cringe. But here's a company that spilled thousands of gallons of oil into Prince William Sound. Essentially wiped out jobs for thousands of people. At least hundreds, if not thousands. From what I understand, the oil that was spilled, even though we may think today it was cleaned up, it's something like 8 or 11% was actually cleaned, and the rest either is at the bottom of the ocean or still there on the shores. But after the spill, Exxon went to court and was ordered to pay $5 billion in damages. Now this is a company, again, going back, made $40 billion in 2007, another $45 billion in 2008 profit, and this is back in '88, I think, was the spill. They appealed the verdict of $5 billion, went back to court, dragged it through court for years. And there's another thing, you never see any reports how many suicides for people that were out of business, people who lost their income. And, how many suicides were a result of that? Yeah, you may laugh, extreme maybe, but a lot of people lost their livelihood because of Exxon, a careless mistake. And it's amazing how 60 Minutes goes behind the scene and all these important issues, but you've never seen them, at least to my knowledge. Now, I'll eat my words if they have, but I don't think there's been a report of maybe one of the biggest catastrophes is to the environment of our time. Very little reporting on it. But Exxon went to court after years, got it reduced from $5 billion to $2.5 billion. That wasn't good enough for him. Went back to court again, and our esteemed Supreme Court reduced it to $500 million. So they ended up paying 10% of the original order. Years, maybe 20 years or so. I think it was in 2006 or 2008. They ended up settling for $500 million. And from what I understand, to date, they still owe over $100 million of that. Still haven't paid it off. But this is a company that made $85 billion in 2 years. They can't pay off half a billion that they owe. So that's my little Exxon story. And I recently saw a commercial with Exxon that just killed me. They do a story, a commercial where they're talking about how safety is their main concern, and how they wanted to make sure they weren't associated with BP spill in the Gulf, but they wanted to let us know that they're leading the technology for cleanup technology for possible future spills, that we should feel safe because they're out there putting their $85 billion into research for new technology and cleanup. But they wanted to make sure that they didn't have anything to do with that spill in the Gulf. I'm 56 years old. There's a lot of 56-year-olds and older around that remember Valdez, so that's not going to cut it with me. Okay. So let's see if I missed anything here. The Occupy Wall Street issue is a modern day example of what goes on with our media. I saw something the other day on CNN that was a list of New Year's. It was like a resolution for published in a Michigan paper, I think. 10 things, 10 phrases or terms that were going to drop in 2012 because they're just so annoying, and one was Occupy. Now, if that's not trying to plant something in our heads, I don't know what is. Absolutely ridiculous. But it's the way the media works. They're very, very subtle, very tricky. If you notice, a lot of the interviews with individuals involved in the Occupy right out on the street is they look for people who may be homeless, maybe a little out there, maybe there for not the reasons that most are, I believe, which is political, strictly to make a statement about corporate America, Wall Street. They don't look for those people, not the educated people. They look for those hapless people there, maybe just to pass time, join a crowd, kill some time. And maybe homeless was a bad word. I certainly don't want to disparage the homeless, but you get my drift, I think. I saw an interview on YouTube, I think it was, where there's about 5 individuals on a street corner, including a dwarf, that were all naked from the waist up, and they're interviewing them on the Occupy issue. Ludicrous. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there are plants there. So what do we have today? We have a higher cost of living, higher health care costs, higher health insurance with less benefits. Most vital commodity, which is gas, is $3.25, $3.30 a gallon. Yet our wages haven't budged. And it's like George Carlin mentioned, you don't find overtime anymore. It's like a thing of the past. There's very little of it. Americans working 2 jobs. I'm working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and I barely make ends meet. I mean, I'm paycheck to paycheck. But we got to change the structure of America with the course of America. When we vote, I mean, we need to keep in mind that we can't stay status quo. We've got to vote for people who have a vision, who have and just an idea of change. Change is going to be a big word in America in the coming years if we're going to be here. The laws have to change. The way we elect officials has to change. No more of this, whoever's got the most money wins. If you're a Democrat, or if you're not a Democrat or Republican, you got no chance whatsoever. It's ludicrous, but that's the way it is today. And a lot of people just think that's okay. Most people think that's okay. 90 probably think that's okay. It's not okay. It's got to change. Let's start changing, huh?